and thank you for joining us for another episode of Words on Words. I'm your host, Iris. I'm a graduate student here in the English department at UNR, and today we're joined by Haley for our lovely discussions. If you'd go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Haley. I'm a senior majoring in community health sciences with a subplan of public health and a minor in gerontology.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah, so fancy.
Graduating in spring?
Yes, I am graduating in spring.
Oh, exciting. So much excitement. So we're starting a new series here on Words on Words where we highlight writing in the sciences. So today specifically, we're focusing on community health sciences, which is a pretty popular major here at UNR. And Haley will be able to provide a lot of insight into the kind of writing involved in CHS, being almost done with the degree. So we'll start off first. How would you summarize the kind of writing involved in CHS, or what will people run into within this major?
A lot of it is really practical writing. So grant writing, writing press releases for different public health campaigns, literature reviews if you want to do like the epidemiologist researcher path with public health. So a lot of it's just like really practical, applicable writing.
Okay, so CHS 211, which is a technical writing course for that major, is a huge writing course that everybody has to take. And a lot of people come to the Writing Center for that particular class. So what kind of writing is involved, and maybe what tips do you have for the folks that will be in that class?
So CHS 211, it depends on your teachers. So some of the courses are really similar, some of them are pretty different. So main tips that I have is don't be afraid to ask for help. I know when I took the class, I was really scared to ask for help. And when I was working at the Writing Center when I took this class. So I wound up like asking Logan, who worked here at the time, how do I do this? And he was super helpful. So asking for help, not being afraid to talk to your professor either. I know it can be really intimidating sometimes, but it's super helpful because they'll be able to give you even more insight than the Writing Center can at times. And then just don't forget to be confident in your writing. A lot of the times you do better than you think you will. You oftentimes surprise yourself, especially if you pay attention in class and kind of absorb everything that you can.
Right. So what makes kind of writing in the health sciences unique, or what makes this I think it's difficult for a lot of people because it's so new and it's writing that they really haven't done before. So what would you say is the main difference for community health sciences as opposed to other majors?
So when we grow up, we were reading all these like fun fiction or sometimes like historical nonfiction in history classes and stuff. We don't really read a whole lot of grant proposals or research papers when we're growing up. It's something we're introduced more so to when we get into college and we become familiar with research papers, but not fully. We can pretty much just skim them and be like, okay, I found what I'm looking for. Having to write them is a completely different story. And I think that's what makes it a little bit more tricky is because it's so structured and everything has a place and everything has to be a certain way. Otherwise you could get dinged on it. But after a while and after you get more comfortable with the writing style, it's almost a little bit easier because you know, okay, this has to go here, this has to go here. And the paper kind of writes itself after that because you know, okay, I know this information has to go in the abstract or this has to go in the methods or something along those lines. It gets easier the more that you do it.
Okay, and a lot of it sounds like it's just practice. So because we're not exposed to this kind of writing growing up and we're not really exposed to reading any of these, so it's this entirely different realm of writing and reading.
Exactly.
It's really just a matter of practice. So I guess don't get too discouraged if like the first writing assignment you get that comes back and is a poor grade. Don't be too discouraged by that, I guess, would be kind of the message.
And we have had a really productive semester in terms of creating support for CHS 211. We've created a lot of resources that'll help students, from how to use AMA, which Izzy worked on, to my resource that I worked on, which highlights like what information should go in what sections. Mm-hmm. So we worked really hard this semester in order to create a lot of really good resources for 211.
Awesome. And that'll be up, I think, so this semester, spring semester.
Yeah, it should be up probably around winter semester, towards the beginning of spring semester.
Okay, great. So since you're here, what kind of, or how would you explain or describe like what kind of writing you would be doing in those literature reviews, or the kind of writing that you'd be doing for grant proposals?
So typically it depends on what field you're going to be in. So for me, I want to do like geriatrics, so I could find a research topic that I find super interesting, and then I would just look for different literature on it, and I would kind of create, it feels like a thesis like you would write for any other paper, but it's more of a research question that you turn into a statement of purpose, I suppose.
Okay.
And then you take that and you create your inclusion-exclusion criteria. And you find like, okay, this article is really, really good, but it's pretty old, so I don't think I'm going to use it just because I don't think it's relevant anymore. And then you just kind of keep doing that and going off of that. And so you just kind of create this really informative paper for people who maybe are going to be doing the research that you're going to be doing. And you just create another resource for someone else. So a lot of it is just finding something that maybe there isn't necessarily an answer to quite yet, and you want to find an answer and give an answer to that. And then for grant proposals, it's more so doing the research. So you're asking for money, saying like, this is what I want to be researching. This is why it's really relevant, why it needs to be done. This is why I deserve the money for it.
Right. So I wonder if that's kind of a thing that students run into, where you're asking a question where there isn't really an answer. You're not going to go out and find a paper that's already discussed kind of these questions that you're asking. And I think a lot of times, either coming out of like freshman, sophomore classes or coming out of high school, there's always been an answer. So I wonder if part of the struggle in this kind of field is that you're not going to have that answer. You're kind of building your own ideas out of what other people have done.
No, exactly. And one of the assumptions when you create a literature review is that you're basing everything you have off of other people's information. And so that's kind of saying like, I didn't do any of this research, but this is what I found. This is how I'm linking it. And this is why it kind of supports what I'm saying. And then typically in a lot of literature review papers, there's a further research section that you can include. And that's where you can include like, there's no solid answer to this yet, so we should do practical research and potentially write a grant proposal saying this should be researched more.
Right, and it's important to make those kind of connections explicitly. Exactly. So I think we might get stuck in just summarizing like all these articles that we found, but forgetting to link them to what our main idea is. And I think that might be kind of a sticking point for some people.
Oh, it is. And a lot of people get really confused. I still get confused between what's discussion, what's research. Like, what should I maybe not put in that section and put it in a different section? And at the end of the day, you just have to go with your gut. So if you think like, okay, you know what, this really seems like a really good discussion topic and less of a research topic because I feel like it's more my opinion, then you can do that. And you can't be afraid to include your opinion in papers like this. You just have to be careful of how you do it. I think that's the most important thing.
So it would be like a good way to introduce your opinion or to discuss your opinion as opposed to a bad way, I guess.
So the best way to do it is to find facts that support your opinion. So if it's what makes it more discussion rather than a research-based topic is research is things that you found that you're connecting, whereas your discussion is things that you believe that you're supporting.
Okay.
If that kind of makes sense. So you wouldn't necessarily say, I believe. You can say something along the lines of something that has yet to be researched or something that could potentially be helpful would be blah, 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 blah. And that could be a discussion or further research topic. Some teachers combine those together. It totally just depends. But yeah, so you can't just say your opinion. You have to back it up with something. Otherwise, it's kind of one of like the fallacies that we learned about for arguments. It just doesn't have anything supporting it. So you need to find those topics to support it. You can't just say something.
Right. And it's important to know how to cite correctly and that you're going to have to be doing a lot of that and kind of learning all the citation methods. And it's not memorizing the citation methods. It's just knowing how to follow the directions.
Exactly. And a lot of teachers sometimes customize the citations to what they want their class to look like or what's easier. Some teachers do AMA. Some teachers give you the option to do AMA or APA. It totally just depends on your professor. But we have resources for all of those
of those here, yeah. So what other classes do you take in in CHS? Because I really only know 211, but
there's a lot. And I mean, this semester, because I'm in all upper divisions, like, so there's epidemiology, which is really interesting. We had to do a big fat poster project that was essentially a literature review on a poster, which was crazy, but it was really cool because it really forced you to learn the material. And then I'm in an ethics and professionalism class where you kind of learn how to do job interviews for public health, how to apply to grad school for public health. There's an internship class that I'm taking next semester where you have to create an entire project for wherever your site is.
Oh, wow.
And then there's 211, there's CHS 200, which is public health biology. So you learn a lot of disease transmission methods, diseases, popular diseases, less common diseases. CHS 310, which you do a lot of the grant proposals, how to do a press release, how to create an entire public health campaign and get someone aware of what's going on without scaring them.
Careful.
A lot of people try to do the scare tactic thing and it doesn't work. But it's the thing that I like about my major, because I started out as a nursing major and I was like, this is not for me. Everything in my major so far has been super practical, and I can see, okay, this is how I'm going to apply it once I get into my field. And it's really easy to get passionate about a lot of this stuff, too, because it's super informative. Not all of the classes are going to be as interesting as you probably want them to be.
As always.
But you learn a lot of good stuff. The main thing I would say, and it sounds super boring, is just read a research paper. That's what I did, honestly, when I was writing my literature review. The research, because I had Dr. Siebold's class. So for Dr. Siebold's class, you were assigned an original article. And that's what you based your entire semester on, was one article that he gave you. And it could be any aspect of the article. So I think mine was protecting deficient pertussis in the Tdap vaccine. So I was super overwhelmed at first. I was like, I have no idea what protected is. So then you just kind of get more into it, and I just read the article. I was like, okay, I kind of understand what's being expected of me now. And I went in and I brought my article to him. I was like, can you put this into English for me, please? And so we just kind of went over and we talked about, like, okay, like, this isn't explicitly saying that this is the research section, but this is the research section. And even though this doesn't specifically say this is the introduction and background, this is the introduction and background.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. So, I mean, there are plenty of example, like, grant proposals that are out there. There are plenty of research articles out there. And so, like you were saying, it's being able to understand that language now. So if you read enough, you know, this information is generally what's included in the discussion or in a lit review or something like that.
Exactly.
And then kind of figuring out how the papers think and how the researchers are thinking and how it's being written. So, I mean, that kind of sounds like a lot of extra work to go out and read a ton of grant proposals and stuff, but it sounds like that's kind of what you need to do, because you're kind of playing catch up. So you had all of your life to learn how to read fiction and nonfiction and, like, the normal stuff we read, but you've maybe had a year to kind of figure out how to read academic articles, and that's just not enough time to fully understand what you're doing.
No, it's really overwhelming at first, but I can honestly say that taking CHS 211 has helped me in every class since. Like, the classes I was talking about, epidemiology, we had to create an entire literature review on a poster, and there's no way I would have known how to do that if I hadn't have taken 211. And for CHS 310, you had to create an entire public health campaign, and I knew how to do a lot of that stuff because I had taken 211.
Right.
So it's really not exciting when you're in 211 and you feel like you're drowning, but you're not. You figure it out, and the class honestly helps you throughout the rest of your college career and probably your professional life.
Okay, and that's important to keep in mind. I know when you're struggling to get through a class, you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me, but knowing that there's another side to that class.
There's another side.
It has a purpose. You're going to use that information. I think is reassuring.
No, and I tell all of the students that who come in and see me for CHS 211, it gets better, you get through it, and it helps you so much. Like, I think for this class I had to write an 8 to 10 page literature review. I've had to write 15 to 20 page literature reviews since then. So I can completely and 100% say with confidence I would not have been able to get through those if I hadn't have taken CHS 211.
Awesome.
Yeah. Don't give up on yourself just because you're struggling and you don't understand something. Get help. Talk to your professor and just stay positive and know that you will get through this. Right. Everyone gets through it.
Right. We at the Writing Center, so all of us, even if we're not in CHS, in the CHS program, we all get training about this kind of stuff. We have meetings about CHS and these kinds of classes and the requirements and everything like that. So the Writing Center really is here to kind of help you kind of stay standing throughout the class.
No, and then if a student ever comes in and we don't have an answer, we have a CHS coordinator always, and they will email the professor, whether it's me or the next CHS coordinator after me. Someone will talk to the professor. So
that can be helpful too. So if you are struggling and you're just terrified of your professor, like, you can come to us and we can kind of try and mediate that a little bit.
No, exactly. Cool.
Well, on that note, we'll go ahead and bring the podcast to a close. I'd like to thank Haley for joining me, and I'd like to thank you, our listener, for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next time.